You're listening to Sasquatch Syndicate.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
And all the ape believers don't want any of the paranormal believers to say anything because they're all whacked and screwed up and we don't want them. And all the paranormal believers don't want, they're going to the ape believers saying, well, you're all closed-minded. You're not open to the fact that it does this and it does that.
And I look over my left shoulder and this creature is running through the woods and it's bulldozing the brush down. And I knew, man, this thing is going to get me.
Welcome to Sasquatch Syndicate. I'm your host, Chuck, out in Seattle, Washington, along with Paul in Portland, Oregon. Thanks to everyone for listening and those following us at SasquatchSyndicate.com and on our social media outlets. Happy December, everyone. We hope you're having a safe and warm holiday season. Of course, here in the Pacific Northwest, the rains are starting to come in and it's getting dark. However, the winter solstice is upon us, and in about 21 days, the days will start to get longer. So please stay positive and let's get ready for the holidays. So I know many of you have written into the show over the years and had asked if we had ever interviewed any government officials in relation to this topic. And the answer is yes. However, most government officials are hesitant to come on the air and talk about this subject due to the risk of their own credibility. But that's not the case tonight. So please welcome to the show the Honorable Mayor of Rainier, Oregon, Mr. Jerry Cole. So Jerry, welcome to Sasquatch Syndicate, and if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background for our listeners and how you got into politics.
I grew up in a little town called Goble. It's about 10 miles from Rainier down the river. When I was a kid, our kind of the big employer when I was a kid was a nuclear power plant of all things, and it was located there in Rainier. But yeah, I grew up in Goble. Went to school in Rainier, went to college in Portland, and just always kind of wanted to give back to my community, and being the mayor is kind of what I picked to give back.
Nice. You know, when I originally moved up to the Northwest in '92, my uncle actually worked at Trojan Nuclear Power Plant there outside of Columbia City.
Oh, okay.
That's where they lived, and my aunt worked up at Intel in Hillsboro, so it was definitely impactful to the communities, both good and bad for sure.
Yeah, it was a huge employer. Employed, anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people, depending on like the shutdowns and stuff like that. But, it took several years to regain that financial stability for our community since Trojan Shutdown. And that's happened in several different ways as far as jobs go and tax base. One of the things that happened here in Rainier is we have a plant. It's called USG. It's a plant where they make sheetrock. So that helped with the tax base and helped with some jobs and stuff. We've got some other employers here at Right Line. They make forklift parts. They employ a lot of people. Teven Brothers is another one. It's a port export place on the river here that employs several people. So, it took a solid 20 years to regain the tax base and the jobs, but I think we're finally there.
I know we had a chance to talk a little bit before we came on the air there, but in addition to being mayor, you're also a firefighter and paramedic, correct?
Yeah. Actually, I work locally at the fire department. I'm stationed in St. Helens, Oregon, and I'm a paramedic and hold the rank of captain currently.
That's awesome. And how long have you been the mayor in the city of Rainier?
Coming up on 18 years. I'm up for re-election, so hoping to make it 20.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the best, and we'll hope to hear of positive outcomes for you. So, Jerry, I thought maybe for the listeners that aren't familiar with the Pacific Northwest, perhaps you can do a little bit of an overview on the town of Rainier, Oregon, kind of where it sits on the map, and certainly a little bit of its history. I know people are familiar with Mount Rainier and the beer company, but perhaps you can give a little bit more background on the town.
Yeah, if you could find Portland on the map, we're about 50 miles down the Columbia River toward the ocean. When you look at Oregon, it kind of has this little bump out on the northwest corner, and Rainier's on that little bump out, if that makes sense for the listeners, I guess. But we're about an hour to Portland, about an hour to the beach, 2 hours to the mountains. But yeah, it's like the northwest corner along the Columbia River.
So, Jerry, we had a chance to meet back here at Rose City Comic-Con and some other events, and I know you're into pop culture and whatnot, and I think it's interesting. I think sometimes people think public officials aren't real, but you're as real as they come, and I really do appreciate that. But maybe talk a little bit about pop culture, some of the things you're into, and I think it'd be just great for our listeners to hear.
Yeah, among other things, yeah, pop culture's always been a interest of mine. Everything from growing up in the late 70s and 80s, all the different movies and that kind of stuff. I'm an avid comic book collector, quite a few different titles. Anything Star Wars has always been a hobby of mine too. I collect quite a bit of Star Wars stuff, from autographs to comic books to figures to that kind of stuff. Just pretty much anything pop culture wise, 80s and that kind of stuff. I'm totally into.
Have you ever made it up to the Star Wars Museum up there in Aberdeen, Washington? I know that he's definitely got a lot of collectibles, maybe not all Star Wars, and probably gets himself in trouble from time to time with some of the things he has there. But he's an interesting fellow as well. But the museum's really cool in terms of Star Wars memorabilia.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I haven't been to that one yet.
Yeah, it sounds like you and I kind of grew up with some similar interests and kind of in that same time period of the 70s and 80s, with Close Encounters and In Search of and other things. But maybe that's why we hit it off, I guess.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And kind of one of my other interests or hobbies is kind of the UFO stuff. I do some amateur ghost exploring type stuff. And then I've always had an interest in Sasquatch and reading about that and learning more about it.
So, over the years, we've taken a lot of reports in and around Columbia County. So Kelso, Longview, all the way up to, Tuttle, Cougar, Rainier. We've had stories from folks that have called in with sightings and disturbances in their backyards. And, obviously, in addition just to the lore of that creature and the sightings there in that area, it certainly had an economic impact. It's a brand in the area, but what have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, we have everything from local restaurants, using the Sasquatch logo to, people selling stickers and T-shirts. I mean, it's definitely a part of the local community for sure. And I think most people are open to it. It's there's definitely a possibility of it.
So let's talk about the possibility, especially since I have you running the town and public official. But let's just say one of these creatures were to be killed or ran over on the road or shot by a hunter and it was brought in. How are you prepared to handle such an incident? And are there any protocols that are already in place, or would you have to create these as you go? And I guess you could think of it not only from a Sasquatch perspective, but even if you had a UFO and an alien.
Sure. Yeah, you just have to be open to it. Personally, just, researching it and looking into it. there might be a little bit of a moment of, I told you so, you know, but, you know, as far as, you know, city perspective, you know, I mean, we would, I mean, you just have to accept it, I guess. I mean, I don't think that there'd be anything more than that.
Okay, so imagine, if you will, we've got a Sasquatch. He's there. You're the mayor. They bring it to your attention. Where do you go first? What's step one? Do we go to the media? Do we go to the local law enforcement? I guess it depends, you know, who brings it to you. But just curious, you know, kind of what you're thinking.
You mean like who would, like, say somebody found one and they brought it to them, or?
Yeah, like who would be, you know, best equipped to handle something like that?
You know, I would think, you know, maybe the, you know, Fish and Wildlife, you know, they have biologists and, you know, that kind of stuff. They're open to, you know, studying creatures and whatnot. Seems like that would be a great starting point. You know, they have some experts in that kind of study. I don't think I would run to the media first, you know, but, you know, go to the local officials first and then take it from there, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I mean, here, I'd love to be in your position, I guess, if that ever did occur. But, you know, you'd have control over this amazing discovery. And so that's why I was just always curious, you know, kind of what you were thinking.
I guess if somebody brought it to the city, I think I would maybe try to contact some of the, you know, local experts in Sasquatch and stuff, and see what they say. And you know, they probably have some better thought and protocols of, you know, how to move forward than I would, you know.
Well, and of course, I'd want the exclusive story, so definitely make sure you call us. But yeah, you know, the fear of, you know, this discovery, it lands on your doorstep and then it gets carted off. You know, I just would really be concerned about, you know, how do you handle it, and does it leak out before something or someone intervenes and the body disappears?
Same fears of, you know, the government coming in and trying to hide it or something, I guess, you know, so.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, with all the UFO reports and everything else we get as well, you know, you could have something even potentially like that as well, which could even seem more plausible in terms of a public event, because, you know, they'd see it coming in and you'd probably have a lot more attention to it as it crashes, you know, somewhere nearby.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like if something like that crashed in the watershed, you know, I mean, obviously we don't have protocol for it, but I would personally try to do my best to make sure that it wasn't hid, and that it was open to you know, the public. The public would need to know about this. I don't think that we'd want to hide it, you know.
So let's talk a little bit about just local reports, local sightings. I'm sure you get a lot of naysayers and believers there in the community, but what are some of the things you hear quite frequently?
I think the most common question that you hear is, well, you know, if it's really out there, you know, how often, you know, how come I haven't seen one? Well, I mean, the one that the buy off for me was, we know cougars are out there, right? You know, how often do you see those? Unfortunately, it's a little more often than normal, but comparably speaking, some of the studies of, you know, how many Sasquatch may or may not be out there, if you look at their travel area, you know, their assumed travel area, and how many are out there, and, you know, does a male Sasquatch have, you know, several females, or, you know, something like that. Some of the interesting geography circles that, you know, were presented, it made sense why you wouldn't see them. You know, of course they're you know, elusive and, you know, hard to see, and, you know, stuff like that. But of course, you know, people do report sightings. So I mean, some people are seeing it, just see them, just not everybody, you know.
Well, we live in the vast expanse here of the Pacific Northwest, and as I always say, you know, 25 million acres, and much of it on any given day has never seen boots on the ground. So, you know, who's to say what's out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's still a lot of area that, is, untouched, I mean, really, the hypothetical that, I was thinking here lately is, with these fires and stuff that just happened, in Oregon and Washington too, if, what that may have done to, any Sasquatch, push them to different areas or something like that,
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. You would believe that these, creatures would probably follow the same patterns during a fire as, local wildlife. But, oftentimes, and, I've got a place over in central Washington as well. And, during these fires, oftentimes animals will head up and get trapped up on a ridge, and not make it down, towards water sources and other safe zones. But, my suspicion is Sasquatch is much more intelligent, and it would make that trek and move towards the water supply that it's pretty aware of. That being said, of course, the smoke density, and for those not in the Northwest, I mean, it was brutal all summer, and it wasn't just the creatures and animals suffering, humans as well. But
yeah, it was pretty bad. Honestly, I don't think I've seen it that bad before, as far as the smoke density and stuff. Yeah, the areas. I mean, granted, if I go on a fire and you're 10 miles away from the fire or something like that, that smoke's going to be dense. But I mean, the smoke just traveled everywhere. It was just crazy.
Yeah, and so obviously, you're part of the fire brigade as well as the mayor. But how close did the fires get to you guys?
I mean, we were actually quite a ways away from the fires. I mean, they were up towards Oregon City, and that area was probably the closest, and that's probably 60, 70 miles.
Yeah, lucky for you guys, you're kind of along the river there. But I was looking, I mean, there was fires as far up as what, Apri or somewhere in that area.
Oh yeah, Apri, yeah.
Yeah, and that town of Apri, all the way down to Scappoose, there's a lot of sightings through there, and it's not only just forestry, it's farmland, and you get disturbances on properties and things, so that's pretty interesting. And speaking of which, for those out looking to go on a Sasquatch adventure, if you're traveling up from, Portland towards Seattle, and, you're through Rainier and Kelso Longview and Tuttle Cougar and up towards, St. Helens and whatnot, there's a lot of great places to stop. But, since we got you, Jerry, and you being the mayor of your town, maybe you can promote some of the local businesses that you think folks should stop at.
Yeah, if you're driving through, we've got some great restaurants. Really, there's a Mexican restaurant. It's El Tapatio. We've got another restaurant. It's called Cornerstone. They were closed for quite a while with all the COVID stuff, but they're actually opening back up. They've got just great comfort food. We've got a couple of pizza places that are pretty good. If you're looking for just like sandwiches and that kind of stuff, we've got a place called Interstate Tavern. They're known for the best crab on Highway 30, and it's true. They have got great crab. The only problem is sometimes it runs out pretty fast. But yeah, we've got a lot of nice stuff to check out if you're looking for something to eat. If you just want to stop and enjoy a park, we've got a great park along the river. And if you're looking for a little bit of a woodsy drive, if you head up Fern Hill and cut across Apri, there's all sorts of nice roads where woods and forest and roads meet. You could check out some areas. There's some state land up there that is just open to the public too. You just have to check it out on a map, but it's up by Camp Wilkerson. And that's all, state forest. So you could go check that out as much as you want for any possible Bigfoot enthusiasts. And from what I've heard, there's been sightings up there and stuff. I haven't personally seen anything in that area, but I've heard of people talking about it, like you said, kind of that lore.
Well, Jerry, I know you've got to cut it short here due to responsibilities there in the area, but I really appreciate you coming on Sasquatch Syndicate. I know our listeners do as well, and We wish you the best in the upcoming election, and you guys stay safe down there.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
This concludes our December 2019 podcast. Sasquatch Syndicate will return on Wednesday, January 1st. Thanks to all of our listeners and those that have been out to our website and those following us on social media. Sasquatch is a controversial subject, so for all the believers and disbelievers and those that will tell you they have all the answers, just remember we're flying through space at 700 miles per hour. Buckle up.